going to hold workshops and panel discussions that will help steer the future of Islamic finance in its ever-growing industry. I would like to begin those discussions with our high-level panel of the summit titled Strategic Islamic Economic Planning, the Islamic Bank Strategies for Sustainable and Long-Term Islamic Impactful Economy. Our moderator leads the global Islamic product function at Standard Chartered with over 2 decades of experience in establishing the bank's Islamic banking operations across multiple regions. His expertise spans retail, wealth management, transaction banking, and financial markets. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming the Chief Executive Officer of Group Islamic Banking at Standard Chartered Bank, Mr. Khurram Hilal. Joining Mr. Hilal are the Group Executive Officer at Dubai Islamic Banking, Dr. Adnan Chilwan, the Chief Executive Officer of Fajr Capital, Mr. Iqbal Khan, and the Chairman of the Economic and Financial Policy Committee of the House of Representatives of the Parliament of the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Dr. Amir Cavalic. Over to you, Mr. Hilal.
Okay, all right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulullah wa ala alihi wa man wala. It's really a great privilege and honor for me to be moderating this very first panel session at the second Global Islamic Economy Summit here in Istanbul, organized by Al-Barka Forum, really carrying on the legacy of late Sheikh Saleh Kamil. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him great reward for all his efforts for the Ummah. We're living in an era where it's defined by unprecedented economic and geopolitical challenges, from intensifying trade wars and global inflationary pressures to devastating conflicts in both the East and the West. These are not only economic shocks, but human tragedies that have shaken the global conscience. In this deeply volatile environment, the role of financial institutions has come under deep scrutiny. The world is asking, what kind of an economic system do we really need? One that simply manages risk and return, or one that embeds values, justice, and long-term impact into its very foundation, into its very DNA. And that is exactly what Islamic finance is all about. It's not just an alternative, but a strategic, principled, and forward-looking economic model, one that is capable of navigating these complexities with financial discipline and moral clarity. But achieving this requires more than good intentions. It requires strategic foresight, institutional vision, and a bold willingness to lead, not only for the benefits of the shareholder, but also for the well-being of the communities and the societies that we serve. I'm truly honored to be sharing the stage today with distinguished leaders from the industry who are making strides every day to live that vision. To my left, I have Dr. Adnan Chilwan, Group CEO of Dubai Islamic Bank, the oldest and one of the largest and most influential Islamic financial institution. Dr. Iqbal Khan, CEO and founder of Fajr Capital, an impact-driven private equity and investment firm. Dr. Iqbal is a true pioneer and one of the founding architects of the modern Islamic finance industry, somebody that I really personally look up to. And His Excellency Dr. Admir Chawale, I hope I pronounced it correctly.
Yes.
Chairman of the Finance Committee of the Parliament of Bosnia and Herzegovina, representing a government perspective, a policy maker's perspective on Islamic finance as a policy lever for national development. So without further ado, Dr. Saab, I'll start off with you. First and foremost, congratulations on the 50-year anniversary of Dubai Islamic Bank, the very first Islamic bank in the world. what would you like to share with the audience about your own perspective on the last 50 years and the strategic direction that you see going forward for DIB? Bismillah.
Thank you, Brother Khurram. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salaam alaikum. Good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here in the timeless city of Istanbul. I've been frequenting Istanbul over the last few years, once or twice every month. So it's very pleasing to see that some of the people that I come and visit are here in the audience today, which shows you that Islamic finance is really making great strides. You did mention that Dubai Islamic Bank has celebrated its 50th anniversary this year. To us, it's more than a corporate achievement, because I think it's a historic milestone for all of us, because it's not just about Dubai Islamic Bank, but it's about the Islamic banking industry being 50 years old. And from my perspective, what we've achieved in 50 years requires a lot of appreciation, because what started in 1975 as an alternative form, to give the larger ummah an opportunity to have an alternative form of banking, today has become a fabric of many nations and institutions. It has gone into more continents and more geographies than we could ever envision way back in 1975. The industry has gained momentum and scale. Today, growth is not the challenge. The challenge is how do we make impacts on economies, on societies, and build for the future. It's extremely important sometimes that you are in a journey, you pause in the middle, you take a step back and look how far you've come. So I think for all of us that are in this audience today, and I was deeply inspired by what His Excellency Mr. Bilal Erdogan mentioned, it's extremely important for us to start focusing on the next 50 years. If we believe in the concept of Islamic finance, then we need to stop defending our past and start defining our future. And that defining our future is only going to happen if we are very true to the reason why Islamic finance was introduced. Stay very close to those values. Of course, we've got two key aspects, trust and truth, that are always defining what Islamic finance is all about. But more importantly, the next 50 years, if we have to build a legacy from here on, it has to be around innovative practices. It has to be around standardizing a lot that is not yet standardized. It has to be working together as one block rather than fragmented approaches. Competition will always be there, but for us to make Islamic finance a pure discipline and not an alternative form anymore, if we want to change that and we want to evolve into this being the most important value system, then we need to start accepting and embracing innovation. We need to start accepting and embracing digital technologies, artificial intelligence, all of this, and work towards sustainability. All of this is only going to pave way and charter new roads. So I feel that the first 50 years have been a revolution, but the next 50 years needs to be evolution.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Insightful words there. Iqbal Sahab, I'll come to you now. Mashallah, you've been a pioneer in the industry in the true sense, directly involved in the ideation and setting up of a number of institutions, both locally and globally. How do you see, in your own experience, the last 50 years of the industry, and what is your vision for the future, the next 50 years of the industry?
So, Khurram, before I talk about the last 50 years, I think Islamic finance, in fact, predates even Islam. Because if you read the work of a lot of economists, they talk about interest in the monotheistic scriptures, and it's backed on modern financial systems. And it also begins with the mudaraba-based system with the Prophet ﷺ, even before Islam, where Hazrat Khadija was the Rabbul Mal, and the Prophet ﷺ was the mudarib. So that whole system started from there. His ethics and values have guided us. But if I was to look at the modern Islamic financial system, last 50 years, the first part was pioneers like Sheikh Saleh Kamil Rahmatullah Alayh, Prince Muhammad Al Faisal, Sheikh Saeed Luta, all the people I've had the privilege to work with and to know. And they really set the tone for the industry. It was a very difficult time. In 1984, Euromoney writes an article, 1985, the Quran in one hand, the calculator in another, will the Prophet's profit rise or fall? Huge skepticism. And then came the movement in the 70s when Al-Baraka, Darul Mal, when they started, they were greeted by investors because Islamic finance is actually a C2B movement. It is not a business being established. It was a business was responding to the demand of the consumers. This is the most powerful business model known to mankind, a C2B business. So in the last 50 years, pioneering institutions like the one established by Sheikh Saeed Luta, whose even licensing was actually came back from central bank, Dr. Adnan, you may know this, as a conventional bank. And Sheikh Saeed Luta went back to Sheikh Rashid's royal court and said, Amrak, I never asked for a conventional banking license. So it is His Highness who initialed what Sheikh Saeed Luta wrote on the license, that it is Islamic. So I think the first 50 years, these pioneers and have played a very pivotal role, and we acknowledge their role. We always grow in the image of those whom we respect, those whom we admire in our professional lives. So I pay a tremendous tribute. If you were to look at a mountain, the first 50 years were kind of halfway on the mountain. And that's what Dr. Adnan talked about. And the next 50 years. In the first 50 years, we have democratized financing. We have created like-for-like parity for most of the conventional banking products, right from letters of credit, guarantees, credit card, debit cards. And we have really democratized financing in a way which is very powerful. And there's one dimension which I want to talk about, which is the role of Islamic finance in terms of international trade and commerce. You see, if you are close to a risk, you can understand it better. And if you can understand it better, you can price it better. I remember an article in the 1990s which said, secular Turkey turns to Islamic finance because Islamic finance could provide competitive rates. So Islamic finance, if you look at the league table of Euromoney for the 1990s and 2000, in all the categories, countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Egypt, even India, were big users of Islamic finance. I remember Indian Oil Corporation borrowing at 350 basis points above LIBOR. So Islamic finance became a provider for cross-border lines in a belt of Islamic countries at a time when the world was being globalized. So I think we have done a very good job. Banks like DIB and the banks in Malaysia, the banks in Saudi Arabia have done a great job. But when you look at the next 50 years, that's where we should be focusing. And you look at down, you see how far you have come, an industry which is in excess of $4.6 trillion. I remember when in my early days of my career, we used to talk about $80 billion, growing at 20%. And from there, we have come to a long way. But when we look to the future, the industry building organizations have to change and become, instead of rule takers, to the ones who articulate the rule for the new broken world economy. Today, with quantitative easing, huge amount of debt, the international financial architecture is broken. And our industry building institutions have to think out of the box. How can we come up with worldwide solutions, not just solutions for the Islamic financial institutions? We have to create role model Islamic financial institutions. So the likes of HSBC and Citibank can say, instead of just having divisions and product propositions, we actually want to become like this. We are not there yet. Dr. Adnan talked about the role of analytics and AI, and I think that's going to be a very powerful figure in moving this forward. But we're living in a deglobalized world, and Islamic finance has to come up with globalized solutions so that it can come up with product proposition which democratizes wealth, philanthropy, and focuses on asset management. So people who are unbankable not only become bankable, but also have the ability to save. And with all the international crisis which is happening, using the technology which is in the Islamic capital markets, socially responsible sukuk, whether it is for earthquakes in Turkey, Pakistan, or whether it is for Gaza, humanitarian sukuks, those are the things which are going to create a big impact.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, Dr. Iqbal Saab. Dr. Admir, I'll turn to you now. MashaAllah, from your vantage point, sitting in the parliament as a policy maker, how do you see Islamic finance contributing to the socio-economic development of Bosnia and generally the developing economies?
Thank you so much for the question. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Merhaba, it's really a pleasure to be here, especially when it comes to fintech innovations and generally speaking about future, not 50 years, but 50 years afterwards, what we experience and we expect. When it comes to emerging markets, there is a really natural symbiosis between Islamic finance, Islamic banking, and emerging market economy. First of all, when we speak about emerging markets, we think about usually small base economies that have fast growth or experience fast growth in a couple of years. We can find those examples of economies around the world, and especially when it comes to the Islamic world. And why is there a symbiosis between the two? First of all, organic feature of Islamic banking. So it's not a top-down approach. It's really organic in its core. And it's based on millennium, not just 50 years of theoretical work, of contributions, of religious aspects and so on. And it's really amongst the people. It's in our Islamic culture. So it's not something that is being managed, centralized, created by the government or some big corporation and so on. It's really organic in its essence. And that's the first feature. And of course, the second feature that we speak about today is the risk-sharing model, ethical aspects, inclusion for all, and so on. When it comes to emerging markets, also, they have a couple of things that are missing and need Islamic banking support. And I speak on behalf of Bosnia and Herzegovina, our parliament, and so on, but other emerging markets also. First of all, in transitional economies, unfortunately, there was lots of speculation and misdoing from the banking industry, financial sectors. Why? Because they didn't have a developed institution like some developed, for instance, Western economies and so on. They didn't have established institutions. So there was lots of misbehavior, and that created mistrust amongst population. I see potential there for Islamic banking because it's creating a new level of trust, and that brings me to the second point, that new level of trust brings new people. It creates inclusion. So it brings people, especially entrepreneurs, from the bottom of the hierarchy and gives them space to, get established institutional financials for their businesses. What is also a feature of emerging market? The infrastructure cannot follow the growth that country is experiencing. So there is lots of space, lots of possibilities for Islamic banks and generally Islamic banking concept to invest in long-term projects. That is something that we are missing. And I think that next to AI, technology, fintech, that is the most important thing that we need to look in the future, how to finance a long-term project. What is a long-term project? Like, I'm really speaking about centuries. So if you look all the developed countries in the world, their main feature, main recipe for success is that they had a long-term, century-long visions, which we unfortunately sometimes, because of our situation of stability, instability, conflicts, lack. So just to sum up, generally, the model is great, it's creating a new level of trust. It needs to recognize infrastructure lacking of some smaller countries, including my country, Bosnia and Herzegovina. And there's lots of potential to invest in people, the human potential, which is still the main resource of this century. So that's my bit unique position as a lawmaker, as an MP, you know. We look this, we analyze that, we're a bit slow. I'm sorry for that. I'm speaking to business people, but I hope we can catch up.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Dr. Adnan, I'll come to you now. We've just recently heard the great announcement that UAE has announced its national strategy on Islamic finance and halal with a very ambitious target of more than doubling the sector by 2030. How do you see this announcement, and what would be your kind of suggestions, that steps that UAE could take to help accelerate the growth?
I think it's an announcement that has come at the right time, an announcement that has come on the on the 50th anniversary of the Islamic banking industry, right? So I don't want to take the credit away from the industry and say that it is Dubai Islamic Bank, but in essence, it's an announcement that talks about what do we do over the next foreseeable future. Of course, while the announcement has come on the opportune time, how are we going to make sure that we reach those ambitious targets? Because like you said, Brother Khurram, is we have to make it 2.5 times the size of what it is today. And, you know, the UAE economy from an Islamic asset management perspective is quite a significant economy when you look at the entire global economy. So to double that in size is going to be a key, a key challenge. But if you've done that in the last 50 years, and in the last 50 years, if you look at a decade and a half, Islamic banking industry in the UAE has actually grown significantly, with local domestic players obviously becoming large in size, but more importantly also global players, competing within the same landscape. From my perspective, from my vantage point, I think a few things need to be done in order to make sure that we go towards that target. And that's in the next 5 years, right? Because we're talking about 2030. First of all, we need to standardize, a lot of aspects of the banking in general. Islamic banking, of course, needs a bit of standardization, but also we need to make sure that Islamic banking can operate in a level playing field within the country. There are certain standards that are being spoken about these days, need to be relooked at. Without getting into technical details, needs to be relooked at, because we want to make sure that we have tools that would enable the Islamic economies to go forward. There also needs to be a convergence between not just Islamic finance, but also the other aspects of the Islamic economy. Islamic halal industry is there, Islamic travel and tourism is there. So those need to make sure that, are playing in the same sphere. We need to invest in human capital. I think one of the things over the next 50 years, not just in the next 5 years, but over the next 50 years, if we want to take this industry forward and quadruple in size, which is what the economists say it has the potential in the next 50 years to quadruple in size, we need to make sure that human capital is invested in. Of course, then, we need to also make sure that the flavor of the world these days, other than what has happened in the last 6 months, is ESG and ESG compliance. We are automatically, operating in an environment that is ESG friendly, right? Islamic finance is all about ESG. So when you look at our key ethics and our values, it's all around, revolving around what the ESG agenda is already there. So I feel that there are a few key aspects from now until the next 5 years, if we focus on, which is exactly what the UAE is doing. Doubling in size would be an achievement that is not as difficult as it seems today.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. Iqbal, I'll come to you now. Now, again, we find ourselves in a situation where the world is going through turbulent times. We have disruption of trade and economic flows. We've got geopolitical tensions resulting in tremendous amount of human suffering. His Excellency Bilal Erdogan talked about that extensively. What role do you see Islamic finance can play here as an agent of change to give the world a just, a fair financial and economic intermediation model?
So you are absolutely right that the world is going through a phenomena which I call majority-minority nations. The majority in every country thinks that they are a minority. So that has led to Brexit, that has led to the election of Donald Trump, that has led to the election of the right-wing parties in Europe and across the world. But that has also led to deglobalization. And there is another trend which is very dangerous, which is decivilization. Whether it is an increase of knife crime or gun crime in America, or government just falling apart. Look at Sudan, what has happened. Look what has happened in Libya. Syria has a hope that it may come back. But institutions and institutional infrastructure which created the world post-Second World War is crumbling around us. In such an environment, the hope is that we as Islamic financiers, as Muslim bankers, would first of all we benefit from the stability in our countries. Turkey is a stable country, UAE is a stable country. When the Prophet ﷺ, he saw the new moon, he always made this dua, Allahumma ahillahu bil aman wal iman, was salamati wal islam, was tawfiq wa tarda. And it always bothered me that why did the Prophet first ask for aman and afterwards iman? Because as a child, when my mother taught me this prayer, I asked her that iman should have been first, Mom. She said, no, because without aman, you can't have iman. Without salamati, you can't have Islam. So we have to work very hard to make sure that there is aman and salamati in our countries. But also, the hope is that this stability, and Islamic finance does well when the economy does well. And this cross-border trade between East Asia and West Asia, that partnership, what happened in Malaysia last week with China, ASEAN countries, GCC coming together, this is a tremendous opportunity. But supply chain logistics are being disrupted across the world. All the globalized trade economies are struggling because those supply chains are being rebuilt. The only country which has a rudimentary form of supply chain logistics intact is India. Because from 1947 till 1995, India was a closed economy, so it built up a supply chain logistics. So I think there is greater opportunity for a system which promotes investments in the real economy, which promotes capitalism with a moral perspective, which has got the products and services which can connect East Asia and West Asia. And I think China is looking for a way to understand Islamic finance. And Islamic financial institutions will be well advised to engage with more and more East Asia and West Asia. So I see that as a tremendous opportunity. And I believe that our country's stability, especially in the GCC, with the wise leadership which we have, is a tremendous opportunity. The challenges are that the role of the public sector we are seeing is increasing. The private sector, if it is squeezed out, then you get into what is called the middle income trap. Those are very, very serious challenges. But Islamic finance can embrace and present a role model for bridging this divide and bringing in the opportunity to democratize wealth and philanthropy, especially using digitalization to enhance and empower the people who are at the bottom of society.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, Dr. Iqbal. I'd now turn to Dr. Admir. I'm sure the audience will be very keen to hear about some of the legislative and policy changes that Bosnia is bringing to make the financial sector, more inclusive for Islamic finance.
Thank you. As a promoter of these ideas, I'm not satisfied, but I must say that our banking agency recognizes Islamic banks. Unfortunately, doesn't give wings to the Islamic products or products of Islamic banks. Why is that? In Europe, you have three Muslim majority countries, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, and Albania. Unfortunately, European skepticism towards Islamic finance is really high in those three countries, especially because we are approaching EU. and there's lots of pressure. Also, I would say it's not just skepticism, it's interest of some conventional banks from EU that stop this trend of developing. We are doing what we can in Parliament. I invite you all that if you have some interest for Bosnia and Herzegovina, please contact us. If you have some interest from Europe, that's a good start to start from Bosnia, because we have biggest border actually with EU country neighboring Croatia. I must agree with Mr. Iqbal. The global trends are not going in the right direction. Right-wing European parties, everyone now is watching Bosnia and what we do. So even introducing, Sharia, just mentioning Sharia, even if that is the law about banks, which should be, like normal secular business law, it's not a big deal, is really from the Brussels perspective or perspective of radical right-wing European parties is a signal, red alarm that they say, look, like these guys in Bosnia are trying to do something. We should stop them from entering EU, or we should have some other deal for them, or so on. So things are not moving in the right direction, but let me conclude. Generally, majority of the population, we are multicultural country, secular and so on, has a good appeal of Islamic finance. Even like lots of non-Muslim population, they have a good appeal. And that's something that gives, a promise of success. No one is against it, but institution laws and so on don't recognize it yet. But no one, like if I like to ask ordinary people on the street, non-Muslims, what do you think about it? They would say, yes, financial crisis, I heard about it, I like it, it looks promising, I would invest in it, and so on. So I think that's a huge thing. Like there is no public or private, force against it. But unfortunately, laws are not following yet, and we're hoping, working on that. It's a dynamic process.
Inshallah. And I think we're all, as Islamic finance community, here to support Bosnia in every effort that you're making. So any support required from UAE, from other institutions, please feel free to reach out to us. I've just been given the instructions by the organizers that we have to fast track the conclusion. So what I would do is that at the end, I just request all the honorable panelists here to leave, one parting thought with the audience. If you wanted to share, what would be that, Dr. Adnan?
Thank you, Brother Khurram. I think what we need to start understanding that Islamic banking or Islamic finance was not meant to, to be a part of a system. It was meant to improve the world. It was meant to elevate it. So we need to stop saying and trying to fit into the system rather than, we need to start making sure how we can elevate it. And we've spoken about ways on this esteemed panel to talk about how we can elevate. Clearly, I think there is, everyone in this audience needs to understand that if you want an Islamic financial institution to succeed, then there has to be purpose which meets profit and not profit which meets purpose. So that's extremely important to understand that the purpose comes first, the values and the ethics come first, and of course, all the other stakeholders and their interest would follow. And I've always mentioned this, and I mentioned this even today, that if we want to grow as an industry, not as an institution, but as an industry, we really, really need to make sure that we have to stop trying to say that this is an alternative form. In fact, we need to say that this has now become a norm of banking. And most importantly, we need to stop defending our past and defining our future. So those are my parting thoughts.
Dr. Iqbal.
Well, the Islamic finance industry is a calling. And those who are called to this industry are really blessed. And we are blessed to the extent that we embrace it fully and totally. I think we need to bring more integrity into the Islamic finance industry. Integrity means that go to the heart of Islamic finance. Build an equitable, meritocratic Islamic finance industry which embraces all of humanity. When you do that, then your mind and your heart and your soul are aligned. Your deen, dunya and akhirah are aligned. And it is by doing that we can create a demonstration effect. And when we create a demonstration effect, then we can impact the rest of the world, both in terms of rules, regulations, and they can see the solutions. Today, all they see is a replication. But we need to move towards democratizing wealth, and philanthropy.
Dr. Admir, your concluding remarks.
Shortly, let me offer a vision and a lesson from economics. The vision is, I agree with colleagues speakers, this is not an alternative. It's in our mindset that we see it as an alternative, in the sense we need to compare, we need to, explain our past, our future, and so on. This is a base. It should be seen as a base concept. That's a vision. And lessons from economics. Modern nations succeed usually on three things: people, institutions, and possibilities to do experiments. Islamic banking, Islamic finance, if it wants to have a future, needs to have a people who understand it, who promote it, who scholars, executives who are good, and this forum is a part of that process, need to have institutions to support it, political, economic, cultural, any other. And finally, what we forget, need to have a small or big space for experiments. And that's the future. That's fintech, any other experiments. And we need to create examples by experiments. We don't need to stop experiments in Islamic finance. That's my conclusion. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. Alhamdulillah. So today's discussion has reminded us that Islamic finance is not merely a financial alternative. It is a value-driven response to the world's most pressing challenges. More than ever, the Islamic financial institutions have both a responsibility as well as an opportunity to lead not just with capital, but with conscience, to plan not just for months and quarters, but for the generations, and to build not just portfolios, but communities grounded in fairness, resilience, and dignity. I'd really like to thank our esteemed panel members for their time, their insights, and their leadership. And I thank all of you for engaging in this important dialogue. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
To our moderator and our esteemed panelists for their invaluable insights. We would now like to give you certificates in honor of today as well. To present the certificates, I would like to welcome Mr. Taha Ayhan, the president of the International Cooperation Youth Forum, the ICYF. Right, we will present the first certificate to the Group Chief Executive Officer at Dubai Islamic Banking, Dr. Adnan Chilwan. Dr. Adnan Chilwan. Oh, okay, sorry. First to our moderator then. Now to Adnan Chilwan. Okay. All right, apologies for the confusion. Now to the Group Chief Executive Officer at Dubai Islamic Banking, Dr. Adnan Chilwan. Okay. And the Chief Executive Officer of Fajr Capital, Mr. Iqbal Khan. And last but not least, the chairman of the Economic and Financial Policy Committee of the House of Representatives of the Parliament of the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Dr. Admir Cavalic. We'd now like to take a family photo of our panelists and our esteemed moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, our high-level panel, thank you very much for those valuable insights that you shared with us today.
1 minute just to clear the stage and we can commence. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our experts, they touched on how Islamic banks can leverage long-term strategies to ensure economic stability and sustainable growth. position themselves strategically in a competitive financial landscape, overcome barriers to enhance competitiveness and drive innovation, while fully maintaining Sharia compliance and adapting to emerging trends. In the next half an hour or so, we will be hearing from our esteemed speakers. We will be hearing from the head of the Investment and Finance Office of the Republic of Turkey, as well as the Minister of Treasury and Finance of the Republic of Turkey, His Excellency Mehmet Şimşek. We are waiting for their arrival into the conference room. In the meantime, I just want to reiterate some of the notes that we have gone through over the last couple of hours here at the Al-Baraka Summit. As we mentioned time and time again, this summit is an important platform that has shaped and will continue to shape the world of Islamic finance. A lot of effort has gone into creating this program, so I think it's important to stress on what we aim to achieve here today.